Which is very important, but nonetheless, it was clear, he made some clear statements to us.
And a lot of people said, who's got to him?
Indicated that he was then afraid. And we knew him we knew him in depth. We spent hours and hours with him, even staying with him at some point, or vice versa. And so I have to say that we knew his personality well enough to know that he had seemed to have been threatened, even though he denied being threatened. And that's important to say.
And an interesting thing is that Jake Simpson, who we were talking about just a few moments ago, who's got a deep understanding of some of these things, he said, I think to you, Kerry, personally, he said he will never be permitted to talk about the reality of the Mars program in public. We crossed a line, you see. If you've got an anonymous whistleblower who hasn't got a face, who's just got a pseudonym, and who hasn't got a real name and never appears on any stage and just writes anonymous reports, you've got the plausible liability built into that as a fuse in the circuit, and people can say, well, you've got enough people on the internet saying that he's crazy and that he's unreal. We don't need to worry about that. He's actually operating as a problem for Camelot, and it doesn't really matter. As soon as a guy comes up saying, this is my real name, this is who I am, I've got a face, and this is my story, then it crosses a line. And that line was another line that was crossed in that summer of 2009.
But what is it, Bill and Kerry, that people like Jake Simpson or Henry Deacon are stopped from talking about Mars, but here we have Andrew Basiago, for example, a practicing attorney who talks for hours and hours about Project Pegasus and what he went through. I just don't understand why one side can talk, and then you have Laura Eisenhower talking about the same subject.
Yeah, but you have to understand that what we deal with are whistleblowers with hands-on experience in sort of this, more mainstream paradigm. In other words, this was a guy who really did work for black projects. He signed non-disclosure agreements, okay? Whereas Andy Basiago and Laura Eisenhower are more experiencers coming forward, okay? They don't have the credentials in the black projects, which make them the kind of real-world threat that the mainstream would take seriously, okay? Now, that doesn't mean their stories aren't true. It simply means that if you wanted to back that up with documentation. Now, Andy is trying to bring documentation forward, but even that is very difficult. He may be successful ultimately, but one cannot say.
Okay.
I can certainly tell you that Henry Deacon is a much bigger threat to the national security state, if you will, the powers that be, because of who he is and where his access, if you will. And then either of them. So it's a level of threat, if you will.
There are two more groups that we upset, and we still haven't got to those yet. At the Barcelona conference also, there's an interesting encounter with Stephen Greer that has become infamous. We never planned to interview him. We hoped to interview him. We had figured that we would never get the chance, and actually he crashed in on us and said, okay, I want to do an interview right now. We weren't prepared. If we could go back in time, I think we would have done it in a different way. But what happened was a clash that was rather like Ali versus Frazier, because there was no way that Stephen Greer, in the opinion of us both, could be allowed to say the things that he was saying, which are not true on 3 different counts. He had stood up the previous day in front of the Barcelona crowd, 1,000 people in the auditorium there, to say 3 things that were not true. One is that as a fact he was saying that there are no extraterrestrials which are not benevolent. Secondly, he said that all abductions were MILABs. All abductions were basically complicated technological psyops that were orchestrated by the American military. And thirdly, he said, unbelievably to a lot of people who heard it, that there's no ongoing relationship between the American military and any extraterrestrial race. I mean, John Alexander could have said all of those things. And you said on the Camelot site, what did you say? Do you remember?
Yeah, if you don't mind. What happened was, the reason Stephen Greer kind of barged in after our interview, we had done a future talk in this little tiny room behind the stage at Barcelona, and we were sort of secluded, and we did a future talk there with Henry Deacon and Bob Dean and Alfred Weber. right at the end of it, Stephen Greer walked in with his entourage, sat himself down and said, okay, I'm ready. Let's do the interview. At that point, we were sort of taken off guard, but we were willing to play ball. We did warn him before that interview that it would be contentious because it was obvious. The day before, he had done exactly as Bill said, and I took issue with that. I said that this cannot go, because the reason it couldn't go was that people respected him because of the Disclosure Project. And so for him to go on stage and suddenly say these untruths, people would tend to be misled.
On the Camelot blog, you said it was insidious.
Absolutely.
Those are the words you used.
And so what happened was, of course, he doesn't read my blog, but someone in his group was a Camelot fan and follower, whatever you want to call that. And they read my blog. They saw the post I made. And they told Stephen. And so that's why he came in, and we were basically in a position where a certain contentious battle was going to take place. At that point, we basically said, okay, fine, we'll go ahead with it. And I have to say that, unfortunately, starting an interview like that has never happened to us before, and it's never happened since. But we're going to play ball. And should something like that happen again, you know, that's okay. But what I want to say here is that he handled himself well. He was sort of his typical demeanor. And the two of us basically kind of dealt with it as we do in our typical personality styles. I have to say that I was a lot more combative than normal because I was absolutely
outraged.
Well,
outraged.
no, but
well, I was outraged.
All right.
So you must.
No, but my point of view was that it was really important that I make clear to him that these sort of untruths could not fly, and that we took issue with them, and that somebody out there in the community needed to do so, and needed to do so in a public way.
And there are a lot of people in the alternative media who share our view and will not say anything about it. We were the first to call the emperor's new clothes. It's like, listen, this guy's an opinion leader. He's somebody who inspired a lot of people in May 2001 with the Washington Press Club Disclosure Conference. Everyone's been looking for him for leadership ever since, and now he's saying this stuff? Who's he working for? You know, I leave that as an open question.
Right. Okay. So, but what you're saying is that we angered whatever group he's working with.
Whatever group he's working with, we pissed them off as well. Okay. So that's number 6. All right. Now this, and if that wasn't bad,
why do you say the latter part? Why did you say that the group was upset? What happened to you to come to that conclusion?
Well, when we're done with all 7, we'll go and explain what happened to us as a result.
But my one-line answer to that is that if we up Stephen, I mean, what would have happened? He would have reported that up the line because he does have connections in Washington. This is known. He's put this on public record. He has a retinue taking care of him. He talks to congressmen. He talks to people in military intelligence. He's proud of that. And so, inasmuch as some of those might have been supporting his stance, this means that if we're an enemy of Steve's, we're an enemy of theirs. And we became dangerous at the moment when we became like the child in the crowd saying the emperor's got no clothes. Okay. And that just put us in another set of crosshairs. Maybe that's not what actually caused the damage, but it's just like, it's an interesting story to tell because we were amassing enemies. I mean, you only need 1 bullet to kill you, but 7 will do the job as well, you know. The last one, finally, is a story that it's a whistleblower of a different kind who had approached us way earlier in that year, 2009, but we finally secured an interview which was in the form of a transcript we published. It was an authentic transcript with somebody who had become a whistleblowing enemy of the Church of Scientology back in 1982 and was instrumental in a huge change of paradigm of how the Church of Scientology operated. This person was a Scientology whistleblower in 1982. They had become famous in those circles. No one knew who they were. They went under a pseudonym Dane Tops, which is a very unusual name. And even in the world of Scientology, nobody knew who this person was. They were a complete enigma. And in the the Conscious Life Expo in February 2009. This person came up to me in Starbucks and started talking to me. They said something just as a little float to see whether I would pick, and I said, "Are you trying to tell me that you were Dane Tops?" Because I knew this story. And this person said, "Yep, you are now the third person who knows." Kerry then became the fourth. This was a huge story. And so
and
we
that
captured,
interview is on our website as well.
Yeah.
So not to go into too deep with that, but the Church of Scientology, Bill is also a member of what's called Ronsorg, which is a free zone Scientology group.
I've never been
an enemy of Church of Scientology
Clarify
already.
that there, because I've heard some rumors floating around that you are a Scientologist, and you might want to clear the air on this one.
Oh, I can clarify. Yeah, sure. I mean, there's no air to clear. I'm on. There's a document on the internet called the Church of Scientology Enemies List. I'm one of the people on that list, and I'm proud to be on that list. I've never been in the Church of Scientology, ever. I've never been a member of the Church of Scientology. But back in 1982, as a result of what Dane Tops had done, this person created an enormous split that the planet that was the Church of Scientology became fragmented into large and small asteroids all over the place. We've now got an asteroid belt of Scientologists. There's still one big body there, which is the Church of Scientology, but I will tell you here, on record, I don't care who hears it, the Church of Scientology is black, it's controlling, it's into mind control. There are people who go in there and they never come out. And I do not support what they do in any way, shape or form, but Ron Hubbard, in my personal opinion, was a genius. And the work that he's done has played a part in changing the consciousness of humanity ever since he wrote his book in 1950, which is when that all started. And the techniques which he uses have been adopted by many alternative therapeutic programs all over the world without even knowing that they come from Scientology. And there are groups that keep quite a low profile that work therapeutically using Hubbard's original techniques, which are not, which haven't been altered and abused by the Church of Scientology to be manipulative and controlling. Because like the surgeon's knife, it can be used to kill or cure. Any techniques that reach deeply inside the human mind, inside the deeply psyche, can be inside the human psyche, can be used in any way at all, and it depends on the intention.
Okay,
if the intentions are good, if the intention is an honourable, ethical intention, you can create miracles with this stuff. And so,
okay, but let's talk about the various, rather than go into Scientology any deeper. Let's basically say that you're part of what's called Ronsorg.
It's called Ronsorg.
Explain what that is.
Yeah, sure. Ron is named Ron's was what L. Ron Hubbard was affectionately known as his friends. Scientology uses a lot of acronyms and abbreviations, and an organization, they call it an org. So somebody, when this started back in 1980, they decided that one of the lifeboat organizations, one of the splinter groups, the largest asteroid in this smashed up planet, it was suggested that it be called Ronsorg, and the name has stuck. And so this organization works primarily in Europe. There are quite a few in America, an enormous amount in Russia, where it's taken off like wildfire. There are tens of thousands of people worldwide, and they're continuing Hubbard's work. Something that not many people know, my first whistleblowing endeavor, this is a little scoop for you, back in 2000 and, let me get the date right, I can't remember, 2003, I think it was, something like that. I was part of a group that took all of Hubbard's published works, millions and millions of words, hundreds of books, lectures, all of which were copyright owned by the Church of Scientology. We digitized the whole thing and made it freely available all over the internet. That genie is out of the bottle now. You can find anything about Scientology that you want on the internet, and that's because of the group that I was working with at that time, not under my name. At that point I didn't have the courage to do anything under my own name. But I was instrumental in making all of that stuff deeply.
Okay, but we need to say that Ingo Swann is a Scientologist. So was many people in the intelligence field are.
So was Hal Puthoff. So was Pat Price. everybody who is involved in the
They
SRI.
are currently Scientologists.
They were.
They're
They
all-
were. They all
yeah.
all had dabbled in it in the early
Yeah.
days.